from the barrier to the top of the timesheets, Charles Leclerc sets the pace on the opening day of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. But it's the king of Baku, Sergio Perez, who catches the eye. From Racing News 365, my name is Nick Golding, and I'm joined, as always, by lead editor Ian Parks. Ian, an enthralling and frenetic day in Baku. We wouldn't expect anything less. 3 red flags alone in free practice. 21 minutes lost from that session. And one of those red flags was caused by Leclerc crashing at turn 15. Ferrari did a great job repairing his car, but he was out of sync in FP2 for reasons you can explain in a second. But despite topping the session, all was not well at Ferrari, it seems.
No, an autumnal Baku we have this time around, because of course this Grand Prix taking place at a different point in the year compared to the usual springtime Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Temperature's still high, but what we've seen with the track, of course, that at this time of year, leaves falling, it was very, very, very dusty, very low grip. Drivers complaining up and down the field that they were struggling to find any grip at all, and quite obviously we saw that with Charles Leclerc in FP1 initially. Coming out of Italian Grand Prix, tremendous victory for him on a high, and then within half an hour, he's binning his SF24 in the barrier at the sharp turn 15 left-hander, complained that he got on the dust on the outside, but of course you could see just from the onboard and from the footage, he was carrying too much speed into that corner. Yeah. So yes, whilst the dusty track may have played its part, nevertheless, as I say, too much speed, and that was his FP1 done. And of course, that had a massive knock-on effect for FP2. Repairs carried out to the car, but as soon as Charles took to the track, he was complaining vociferously about the car, the difference between the front right and the front left, that the car was really struggling, described it as bent at one point, and really bemoaning to his engineers that he was really struggling, asking them, why can't you see this on the data? What's going on? And then ultimately, he had quite literally had enough. And he turned around and said, that's it, I'm coming in. I can't drive this car anymore. He did, however, towards the end of the session, after everything had been analysed, the steering had been checked, and whatever repairs had been carried out, massive red wall across the front of the garage to prevent any prying eyes looking at the internals of that car. He did go out and ultimately set the fastest lap. Now, this, of course, was when the conditions were arguably at their best, despite the setting sun that was causing considerable issues for a number of drivers. They weren't happy driving out the sun into the shade, vice versa. It's causing, as I say, quite a few problems. But Charles, at the top of the timesheet, is it representative? Not really. Track conditions are going to be quite different. Qualifying does take place an hour earlier compared to the second session, and race is 2 hours earlier on Sunday. So there is a lot for the engineers up and down the pit lane at all the teams to delve into going into FP3 and, of course, crucial qualifying session.
It was, a very busy day for Ferrari. And, of course, in FP1, Leclerc's crash was the second of 3 red flags. The first was a short one for debris on the circuit. Very well spotted, actually, because a chunk of metal on the track. And then the third and final red flag was for Williams rookie Franco Colapinto, in an unfortunate incident. He missed the first part of FP2, but did then go on to do a good performance. But moving on to Red Bull and the king of Baku, we give him a hard time. But Sergio Perez, there is something about him at the Baku City circuit that just seems to work. He seems to love the place. The only driver to have won the Azerbaijan GP more than once. Look, the best driver today, if we're being completely honest.
Yeah, Christian Horner said it all in the team principals press conference that took place between the 2 sessions, that this is a circuit full of 90-degree corners, and it's a track that is not really going to affect the car too much, as we've seen recently. And the problems with that car, as we well know, is this disconnected balance between front and rear. And as I say, because of the type of circuit, because of all these 90-degree corners, it's not really going to throw the car too much. And Red Bull actually have come out of Friday with looking quite good. Both Checo and Max voicing positivity, which is something we've not heard for a little while, certainly since we returned from the summer break. Obviously, Max Verstappen describing his car as a monster post-Italian Grand Prix, the last race there, of course. Still going on a little bit about the balance, still a little bit to find, but he's confident that they can feel quite competitive. And of course, Sergio Perez, second quickest on the end of the day, 0.0006, I think I'm right, or 0.006
Correct.
seconds, just 6,000ths of a second behind Charles Leclerc. Yeah, Kingo Baku, as you've described, and the only driver to win this Grand Prix twice. He does love it. And at the moment, he's looking very strong. Red Bull looking relatively comfortable, still a bit to find. They've had 1-2s here over the past 2 years. Could they do it again? Have they got the car for the hat-trick? It's tough at the moment. It's really difficult to call. Ferrari, as we can see, are there. But as you said, as we pointed out, Nick, they were struggling to a certain extent, trying to find the grip, trying to find the limits. Mercedes in particular with Lewis Hamilton, they're not looking too bad. George Russell had power unit issues. So a lot of work to do with Mercedes on that W15 going into Saturday. And then McLaren. I know we were going to touch on McLaren.
Yeah.
We've always anticipated that they now have the car for all circuits. Lando Norris down in 17th, albeit that time set on the medium rubber. His 2 soft tyre runs disrupted in FP2, one by Pierre Gasly, one by Valtteri Bottas, so he didn't really set a properly representative time in FP2. He said that they've got a lot of work to do. He believes that at McLaren, 4th quickest, that's to be seen. Oscar, at least in a better position, he was 5th overall behind Charles, then Checo, then Lewis, then Carlos Sainz in his Ferrari. So more representative of what can be achieved via Oscar. But at the moment, yeah, McLaren, definitely a lot of work to do overnight. But we know what Lando's like. He can be downbeat one day and then everything is all sunny and rosy in his garden again the following day and everything's put right. So, but a lot to see and a lot to assess.
And of course, the big thing with Azerbaijan is that track evolution plays a huge part. Odds on it's going to get quicker and quicker and quicker every single lap. Although interestingly, FP1 today was a second slower than the leading time from FP1 last year, which I think is quite interesting. But you mentioned there McLaren and obviously Red Bull. Red Bull have kind of made Baku a bit of a fortress for themselves ever since it really came onto the calendar back in 2016. Obviously, initially it's the European Grand Prix. My mind still doesn't know how it counts as Europe. Anyways, that's a geography podcast question or whatever. But there does seem to be a real chance this weekend. Obviously, yes, we can only take Lando's comments about McLaren being 4th fastest with a pinch of salt for now. But it does feel that given the Red Bull's history at this place, there is a good chance that, well, a good chance for them and Max as well, to potentially increase their lead in the championship and take a little bit of that pressure off that McLaren and Ferrari have been heavily putting on them.
Yeah, as I mentioned, this is a circuit that does or has suited that car in the past. Certainly, as I say, with those 1-2s since these aerodynamic rules came into force at the start of 2022. And at the moment, it's looking positive for them. They do seem to have got the car hooked up quite early. Max, not so much as Checo. He did have one lockup in FP2, where it came just within about a couple of feet away from going into a barrier, but he managed to keep the car on track there. So he knows he's got a little bit of work to do compared to Checo. Checo definitely the happier of the 2 drivers at the moment. McLaren, it's got a bit of a patchwork flaw on that car, as we've come to understand. And what I mean by that is that they've basically looked at the flaws of the car over the course of this season, the evolutions that they've placed on it, and they've kind of put a piecemeal flaw together for this one rather than going down one route with an old flaw or going down another route with the most recently used flaw. They've kind of, as I say, put that flaw together and come up with this flaw for this particular circuit. We'll see how it's going to look in Singapore next weekend, whereas we know that car had major issues, the RB19. It was the only Grand Prix that Red Bull failed to win across the course of last season. Can it make amends this time around? We're too far away to assess that one right now, but at least on Friday over the Azerbaijan Grand Prix weekend, Red Bull is looking in a much healthier position than it has done at any of the previous few Grand Prix, and that's going back even before the summer break. They're on this run, of course, where they haven't won for the past 6 races, which is quite something extraordinary for that team, bearing in mind the dominance that it has held over this sport for the last 2 seasons now.
Absolutely. And just on Mercedes, as you mentioned, a good day for Lewis, third fastest and just 0.066 seconds behind Charles Leclerc. And obviously Hamilton's time was set at a similar time to Sergio Perez's, so kind of more representative than Leclerc's, because that was set a little bit later on in FP2. But a very difficult day for George Russell. Obviously, has had a precautionary power unit change, and then was forced to really abort FP2 a few minutes early after another problem. It's on George's side of the garage, a difficult start in Baku.
Yes, for all the reasons that you've pointed out, and bearing in mind this is a circuit where it really is, you do really have to build up over the course of the 3 practice sessions. You need to get that feel. You need to understand where the grip levels are around the circuit, simply because the nature of it is a street circuit. As I say, it is really dusty, and particularly at this time of year as well, as I've mentioned, the leaves are falling, as we saw quite a number across the circuit over the course of those 2 sessions. So, as I say, for George to lose all that time, when you think as well that he lost the 21 minutes in FP1 due to the 3 red flags, all the time lost over the course of FP2 due to these power unit and electrical issues, he's barely had an hour's running over the course of the full 2 hours. So that's really going to play into the difficulties that he's now going to face going into third practice. He's going to need all the time he can possibly get across the course of that hour to then build up to hopefully gain some confidence going into qualifying. On the opposite side of the garage, yes, Lewis has had a good Friday. We know that Mercedes has reverted back to an old flaw on that car, and at the moment that seems to be paying dividends for Lewis. He seems to be in a good place. So at least one half of Mercedes is happy going into Saturday at least.
Definitely. And just to finish things off, before we do our bold predictions for qualifying, we've got to mention Oliver Bearman, of course, replacing Kevin Magnussen for this weekend at Haas, as Magnussen is serving his 1 race ban. And Bearman proving that he just looks like an F1 natural, less than a tenth of a second behind Nico Hülkenberg in FP2. Ollie finished session in P10. He just looks so comfortable so quickly. And obviously he joked that FP2 ahead of this weekend was the only F1 session he was yet to take part in. He's now ticked that box, but he just seems like a complete natural already.
Yeah, superb weekend. We know what he can achieve at this circuit, though. He joked yesterday that for a driver coming into a season, coming into his, debuts, to have the 2 circuits that he's had to face so far, Saudi Arabia and now Baku, he couldn't have asked for anything worse in many respects. However, the proviso being, of course, that last year in F2, not only did he put his car on pole, he won both the sprint and the feature race. So he's another one that clearly does love this circuit, like Checo Perez. He was quicker in FP1 than Nico, but as I say, they were both getting up to speed. And as you say, just a tenth off in FP2 and 1 place behind his teammate Nico Hülkenberg. So he has great guns. He's gone great guns at the moment. And if he can carry that form into FP3, into qualifying, I think he and Nico could both be on course for Q3 at this rate. They've looked that strong at the moment, particularly when you look at the field behind them as well. There's really nothing behind to suggest that they are a threat to Haas going into qualifying. You look at Aston and Stake and Williams, tough day for that team as well today. So yes, could be a big day for Haas, could be a big day for Ollie Bearman on Saturday.
Completely agree. And actually, on that note, for bold predictions, I'm going to kick things off, and I'm going to say that I think both Hasses will be in Q3, as you just alluded to there.
My line, Anthony.
Well, no, we can share it, because actually my main one is I think sharing is caring. I think we're going to have a Red Bull front row lockout. I just think the way the story of their struggles has gone, the way this season is playing out, I can just see. Don't know which order, but I just think we'd have a Red Bull lockout on the front row. Over to you.
It wouldn't surprise me, but I do think, given the way, okay, yes, Charles had that incident in FP1, and given the fact he's already been a 3-time pole sitter here, never won from pole, by the way, folks, just to let you know. So he's got something to correct there if he does put it on pole again. But I do think he's going to be splitting the Red Bulls tomorrow. Whether he gets another pole, not quite sure, but I certainly think he will be on the front row again, if not on pole.
Good stuff. Ian, before I let you go, for those who have been watching this video, be sure to let us know your thoughts on all of our talking points in the comment section. But more importantly, make sure you are subscribed to this YouTube channel, RacingNews365.com, if you want a chance of winning a scale model F1 car of your favourite team or driver in what is our latest prize giveaway. Whilst you're at it, smash the like button for myself and Ian. This has been the post-Friday F1 update. We'll see you on Saturday after qualifying. See you later.
Take care, folks.